All right, so you wanted to know about BMW's M cars. What makes them special?
Yeah, the M Series.
Exactly. So we're doing a deep dive on their performance and their history. We've got a ton of info about it all, from their start in racing to all the tech in their current cars. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating story. We're going to be covering how they evolved over time, and also looking at some of the most important cars that they've made along the way, and really just figuring out, what sets an M car apart from a regular BMW.
Okay, so let's just jump right into it then. What does M even stand for? What is it all about?
At its core, M stands for motorsport,
Yeah.
and it all began with this group called BMW Motorsport GmbH, and their focus was entirely on racing.
Okay, so like a dedicated motorsports division?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at first they were just focused on building race cars, but then they kind of made this interesting change where they started to take what they'd learned on the track and use it to modify road cars, bringing that, performance and that spirit to everyday drivers.
Oh, I see. So it's more than just like an appearance package on a regular BMW then, right?
Right. It's definitely more than that. Yeah, there are actually a few different levels.
Mm.
So you've got M Sport, which is mostly cosmetic changes with some minor handling improvements.
Okay.
And then there's M Performance, which offers more serious engine and performance upgrades.
All right, so a step up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then at the top, you have the full-fledged M models, which are really like completely different cars with significant modifications all over.
Oh, so, okay, let's rewind a little bit. How did this all start?
Well, 1972 was a big year. That's when BMW Motorsport GmbH was officially founded. It was a pretty small team at first, but they had, real racing experience. And the guy in charge was Jochen Neerpasch.
Yeah, Neerpasch.
Yeah. And they were really ambitious right from the start.
Hmm.
They wanted to compete and win at the highest levels of motorsport.
And so their first big project was that 3.0 CSL, right? The Batmobile?
That's the one, yeah. It was a really striking car, and it really helped establish BMW M's credibility because it was successful right away in a lot of different racing series.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen pictures of that car. It is a looker.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then in 1978, they came out with the M1, which was a bit of a departure for BMW.
Yeah, it was a mid-engine car, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, it was actually BMW's only mid-engine supercar, and it was the very first road car to actually wear that M badge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and to really showcase the M1, they created a special racing series called the Pro Car Championship, where Formula One drivers would actually race these cars.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see.
So it seems like the 80s is when we really start to see those iconic M cars that were built for the road.
You're right. Yeah, things really picked up in the 80s. One of the first was the M535i, which was kind of like an early version of the M5. It gave people a taste of what motorsport engineering could do in a more everyday car.
Gotcha. So like a stepping stone.
Yeah, exactly. And then came the M635 CSI, or the M6 as it was also known, which actually used an engine that was derived from the M1 supercar.
Okay.
And then, maybe most importantly, the very first M5 was born. And that was a game changer.
Was that based on the 5 Series?
It was based on the E28 5 Series, and it also used that M1 derived engine, so it was a pretty big deal.
I bet, yeah, a super saloon.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, in 1986, they came out with the E30 M3, which is just, a legend.
Oh, yeah, that's like the poster car for BMW M, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. And it was initially built just to meet racing regulations so they could go racing with it, but it ended up completely dominating touring car championships all over the world. And it just cemented BMW M's reputation for building these amazing handling cars.
So what happened in the 90s and the 2000s? Did they keep making more M cars?
Oh, yeah, they did. They kept innovating and expanded the lineup. In the 90s, for example, you had the E36 M3, which was the first M3 to have a 6-cylinder engine. And then in the 2000s, they came out with the E39 M5, which was the first M5 to have a V8.
Wow.
Yeah, and there were a few other special models, too, like the E46 M3 CSL, which was a more hardcore track-focused version of the M3.
Right.
And then they even entered the SUV market with the X5M and the X6M, which were actually the first M cars to have all-wheel drive and automatic transmissions as standard.
Oh, wow. Okay. And more recently, we've seen a pretty big shift towards turbocharging and now electrification.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 2010s, they started using turbocharged engines in a lot of their M cars, like the F10 M5 and the F80 M3 and M4, and that was, partly for efficiency, but also to get even more power.
Makes sense.
And now they're moving towards electric powertrains, too. So they're M performance models like the i4 M50, and then full M models like the i7 M70 and that XM SUV, which is a hybrid.
Right, the XM, yeah. So lots of changes, it seems like.
Definitely. Yeah, they're really embracing new technologies while still staying true to that, core M philosophy.
So just to give our listeners a quick overview, what does the current M lineup look like?
Well, it's pretty diverse. They've got everything from the classic sedan and coupe body styles with the M3, the M5, the M2, and the M4.
Okay.
And then there are also convertibles in that four-door Grand Coupe version of the M8.
Right.
And then, like I mentioned, they've got a whole range of SUVs and SAVs like the X3M, the X4M, the X5M, and the X6M.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and then you've got the electrified M performance models and the full M models like the i4 M50 and the i7 M70.
Okay, and just to clarify, those electrified M cars, are they available everywhere?
Well, that's a good point, actually. The availability of certain models can vary depending on the region. For example, the M3 Touring Station Wagon isn't available in the U.S.
Right.
And the X3M, I think, isn't available in India. So it's
Yeah.
always worth checking, what's available where you are.
Good point. Yeah, so putting an electric powertrain in an M car, that seems like a pretty big deal, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely represents a big change in how these cars deliver performance.
Yeah.
Because electric motors offer that instant torque, so you get this incredible surge of acceleration off the line. But they're still engineered with that focus on handling and that connected feel that BMW M is known for. So it's a pretty unique experience.
All right, so let's talk a bit more about that performance DNA. What are the things that really make an M car handle so well?
Well, traditionally, it was all about those high-revving, naturally aspirated engines,
Yeah.
that love to be pushed to the red line.
Right.
Now they're mostly using turbocharged engines, both inline-6 and V8. And of course, now electric motors are becoming part of the mix.
And those electrified M cars, those are still seriously fast, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The acceleration figures are incredible, but really the defining characteristic of an M car is the handling. It's not just about going fast in a straight line. It's about that balance, that responsiveness, and that feeling of connection to the road.
Hmm.
And that's achieved through a number of things. One is weight distribution. They aim for near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution between the front and rear axles, which really helps with balance.
Okay.
And then they've got all these special suspension systems that are engineered specifically for M cars with things like adaptive dampers and stiffer springs and bushings, to make it corner really flat.
I see. So it's a lot more than just a powerful engine.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the whole package working together.
So what are some of the other technologies that make M cars stand out?
Well, their engines are pretty special. They use this M twin power turbo technology, which means they have two turbochargers for better response.
Okay.
And a lot of the engines are either bespoke to M cars or they're heavily modified versions of BMW's regular engines, and they often have reinforced components to handle all that extra power, and they've got advanced cooling systems to keep things from overheating.
So they're built to handle being driven hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they've got special suspension systems too. Like I mentioned, the adaptive M suspension can adjust the stiffness of the dampers on the fly, so you can have a comfortable ride when you want it,
Yeah.
but also really tight handling when you're pushing the car.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and the brakes are upgraded too. They've got bigger discs and calipers, and you can even get carbon ceramic brakes on some models, which offer incredible stopping power, and they're really resistant to fade.
Nice. And what about the styling? Are there any signature M design elements?
Yeah, that's definitely, you'll see things like those quad exhaust pipes on a lot of the M cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, they often have more aggressive bumpers and side skirts and spoilers and things like that, to improve aerodynamics, but also to give them that sporty look.
So it's all functional.
Yeah, for the most part it is. They also have special interiors too, with sport seats and M-specific steering wheels and things like that. It's all designed to create a more driver-focused experience.
Okay, so let's look at a couple of specific models to understand this evolution a little better. Let's start with the M3.
Yeah, the M3 is a great example. It's gone through so many changes over the years. The very first E30 M3 had that high-revving four-cylinder engine, and it was designed primarily for racing.
Right.
And then over the years, they've used different engines. They've had inline-6, they've had a V8, and now they're back to an inline-6, but it's turbocharged now.
Okay.
And they've also added things like all-wheel drive, and there's even a station wagon version now, the M3 Touring, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And they've also had some really special limited edition M3s over the years, like the E30 M3 Sport Evolution, which was a super hardcore version of the original.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then there was the E46 M3 CSL, which was another really lightweight track-focused version.
Very cool. So how about the M5? How has that evolved?
Well, the M5 has an interesting story, too. The very first one, the E28 M5,
Yeah.
actually used the engine from the M1 supercar.
Wow. So it had a supercar engine in a sedan.
Yep, that's right. And then they went through a few different engines. They had a V8, they had a V10, which was pretty wild.
Oh, wow. A V10. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, it's pretty special. And then in 2018, they made a big change with the F90 generation of the M5. They give it all-wheel drive for the first time, which was a bit controversial, but it made it even faster.
Okay.
And now the latest M5, the G90, is actually a hybrid. It's got a V8 engine combined with an electric motor.
So lots of changes there, too.
Definitely, they've never been afraid to try new things with the M5.
Okay. So to wrap things up, what would you say is the key takeaway for someone who wants to understand what BMW M is all about?
I think the key takeaway is that BMW M is really about taking that motorsport heritage and applying it to road cars.
Yeah.
It's about that pursuit of performance and that driver-focused experience. They're always pushing the boundaries and trying new things, but they never lose sight of what makes an M car special.
And what about, for our listeners, something to think about? What's a question that they can ponder after listening to all of this?
Well, I think it's interesting to think about how electrification is going to change the M experience, as they move away from those traditional internal combustion engines. How will they create that same feeling of excitement and engagement? What new possibilities will electric power unlock, and how will they preserve that mDNA in this new era of performance?
That's a great question. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.